the first couple of guys I wanted to ask you about, Will McDonald from Iowa State and Lukas Van Ness from Iowa are two of the main guys whose names have been floated out there as potential first rounders. From your perspective, do you believe that both, one, or neither will hear their names called in the first round?
Well, Reina, let's start with Lukas Van Ness. I think he will definitively go in the first round, and I'm going to go so far as to say I think he ends up in the top 10 of the draft. I really think the versatility he brings as a prospect is something that NFL teams covet. He's obviously established himself as a productive rush end. He's played over the nose, and he really could be a 3-4 outside linebacker. So that's the type of toy defensive coordinators at the next level really appreciate. So I really think Lukas Van Ness, when you start looking at his draft range, I think the earliest he could go is 5, and it would be difficult to see him falling past Houston at 12. So I think that's a nice place to put him, but 8, 9, 10 looks like his sweet spot, and another Kirk Ferentz defender ends up in the NFL. As for McDonald, I think 25 to 35 is probably a safe range for him. He's a bit of an older guy at age 24, and I think that's something teams will hold against him. But there's a lot of positives, right? Super productive as that rush edge. Really one of the best defenders in the Big 12 for multiple seasons. The questions about him come with: is he enough of a run stuffer? Is he stout enough at the point of attack? But there's enough great film on him. And look, in this quarterback-driven league, you need guys who can go get that quarterback, and McDonald's certainly proven he can do that time and again.
Yeah, I mean, it tied the Big 12 career sack record, so definitely a proven commodity there. Going back to Lukas Van Ness, he's kind of an interesting guy in that he's regarded as, from his teammates, they call him Hercules. He's just kind of this physical freak of nature, probably more suited to be an edge guy. Didn't really do that at Iowa. So what system do you think would fit him best for his skill set?
I think ideally he's in a 4 down front and he comes off the edge. But I think the asset and what's really going to nudge him up in that top 10 range is the versatility that I spoke of, that he can fit with multiple systems. Look, when you're drafting that high, there's a fluidity to your roster that is inherent. So I think the fact that he can adapt to whatever system he is in is going to be a strength. But when you draft defensive players that high, they better be able to go tackle the quarterback. And Van Ness has clearly shown that he has the capability, the strength to do that. Different than McDonald, he has shown too that he can really hold the point of attack and really go stop the run and be an asset in that part of the game.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the offensive guys. Sam Laporta, another Iowa tight end. Iowa is known for producing some really great tight ends. How does he compare to some of the other guys that have come out of Iowa and that have had success in the NFL?
Well, I think Sam Laporta compares favorably. I think the offensive system that Iowa runs, that they did not run particularly successfully this year in terms of production, probably don't have to remind you of that. I do think that system prepares guys well for the NFL. He has a huge component in the blocking game. Sam Laporta's biggest problem this year is Iowa didn't have anyone else to throw to, so he was the focal point of a lot of opposing defenses. So I really feel like the Iowa tight end is such a strong brand that it's going to overcome some of his relative lack of production last year. The biggest problem for Sam Laporta is that this is the best tight end class in recent memory. When you look at Michael Mayer and you look at Dalton Kincaid, and we can keep knocking off big names and going down the list. Obviously, nobody's built like Georgia's Darnell Washington, who's a 6'7" Sequoia. So there is some traffic in front of him, but I do see him as a great late second round value for a contender, a guy they could plug in and even start if they had a need at tight end.
He's a guy who kind of got more people started talking about kind of later in the process. Kind of where do you think he'll go? What range and kind of what things do you think he brings to the table?
Yeah, so I think Jack Campbell is going to go at some point on Friday. I think that's a safe bet for Jack Campbell, and I think early on in the draft process he was maybe projected a little bit higher, and I think he's gotten picked apart a little bit at times. But I just think when you look at production and you look at physical strength and capabilities, there's a lot to like about Jack Campbell, and I can't stress enough that Kirk Ferentz's players have a great brand in the NFL. They are tough, they are sturdy, they have played in pro-style systems, and there's a confidence that they'll be able to translate up. And if you look at the amount of guys that Bill Belichick has taken over the years, who obviously Kirk worked for him with the Cleveland Browns, and you look at just you look at the hit rate of guys from Iowa, it's strong, and I really think that's gonna resonate.
Yeah, out of the players that we've talked about so far, which one or ones do you feel most confident can make it an impact right away and possibly be a year one starter?
Yeah, well, I think if someone takes Lukas Van Ness where they take him, they're going to want him, almost need him to start to justify that high of a draft position. So I really feel like that's going to be a top priority. He's almost going to have to start. And then McDonald, when you look at him, it's just going to matter what kind of traffic's in front of him. And again, some of what he does could be as a third down specialist. So he may not be a starter, but if you are a every third down, third and long type situational player, that's almost starter value, even though you're actually not on the field when the game starts.